Crawford and Errol Spence fighting in 2023?
I hope so. I hope so. But if not, then, you know what I mean, it is what it is. I wish him the best in his career, and I'm going to continue to do what I do in my career. If the fight happened, it happened. If not, then, you know, it just be one of those fights that go down in history that didn't happen. You know, it's numerous of fights that didn't happen. Do I want the fight? Absolutely, yes. Have I tried to make the fight? Absolutely, yes. Do I want the fight after this fight? Absolutely, yes. Like, of course, you know. But if it doesn't happen, then it's out of my power. I can't, you know, make the man fight. I can't make the man, you know, go against, you know, what he stands for with his team and all that. So, you know, it is what it is. But
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, what you just heard was well-renowned boxing analyst, boxing pundit, and reporter for ESPN, Brian Custer, the good brother Brian Custer. He featured undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO World Boxing Organization welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no loss and no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 35 years of age, 5'8", with a 74-inch arm reach. With that said, Brian Custer asked Terence Crawford, obviously, if he sees himself in this big fight.
Do you see Bud Crawford and Errol Spence fighting in 2023?
Right. So Brian Custer, he asks Terence Crawford flat out, do you see yourself and Errol Spence fighting in 2023? If you don't know, Errol Spence, the undefeated, unified 3-belt WBC, WBA, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 2, if not #1, definitely top 5 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, with a record of 28 wins, no loss, no draw, 22 big wins by way of knockout. He is 32 years of age, 5'9.5", with a 72-inch arm reach. With that said, they make up for the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, okay? Undisputed welterweight showdown. Legacy, history is on the side of both of these fighters, okay? There's never been a 4-belt undisputed world champion in the welterweight division in the history of the sport of boxing. So they both have an opportunity to create history 2 times over. For Terence Crawford, he's already become undisputed at junior welterweight. For Errol Spence, he's seeking to become undisputed for the first time in his career. Not to mention, you have both of these fighters at the height of their career, both are undefeated, and both are top 5 pound-for-pound best fighters in the world. With that said, people have asked me what I thought about this, and I'm going to tell you flat out, it was a bad idea for Terence Crawford to say that he don't need Errol Spence fight. Of course, Terence Crawford needs the Errol Spence fight. Now, Terence Crawford, he was alluding to, you know, he can't force Errol Spence into this fight, and that, you know, that is out of his hands. But it is in your hands. It's not out of your hands. It is in your hands. You can push for the fight as well, right? You have power to make this fight as well as Errol Spence has power to make the fight. Now, obviously, it takes 2 to tango. Where he goes wrong in this interview, right, is that Terence Crawford expresses that, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. And then he says that, you know, it'll just go down as history in one of those big fights that never happened. That's a terrible mindset, right? When it comes to the fan's point of view, right? When you're a fan, that's not what you want to hear. When you are doing these interviews, and like he said, this is a fight that he wants to make. He said he's tried to make it. He wants it after his December 10th showdown with David Avanesian in his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, on BLK Prime. Go to blkprime.com. Click on the link. Go subscribe to blkprime.com. You can see Terence Crawford fight David Avanesian in Omaha, Nebraska. When Terence Crawford does these interviews, right? And his explanation always comes across to the fans as if the Errol Spence fight is not important. And as a fan, I understand how that comes off as being callous. And so this is something the fans absolutely do not want to hear. They do not want to hear Terence Crawford say, I hope so. There's words that should never be used when you're describing the clamoring of a mega fight or any sporting event for that matter in interviews from said athlete. Okay? You don't want to hear Terence Crawford say, I hope that this fight happens. You don't want to hear Terence Crawford say, if the fight don't happen, essentially, oh well, this is just another one of the big fights that go down in history, not happening. The fans don't want to hear that. And so because of that, when you make these types of statements, when you do these types of interviews, and you know the highlight is going to be per interview, when Errol Spence announces his next fight, which looks like it's going to be against former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman. When Errol Spence does his interviews, the focal point is going to be around Terence Crawford. It's going to surround, there's going to be, Errol Spence is going to get more questions about Terence Crawford than Keith Thurman by far. By far. And so Terence Crawford has to prepare himself as well, because when he gets in front of a camera, he's going to be asked by far about Errol Spence over David Avanesian, right? And it's a bad choice of words when you say you hope so, or you tell the fans that if it don't happen, essentially, he didn't say, oh well, but that's essentially what the fans are going to take it as, is callous, that you don't care about making the big fights. And you say, oh well, then it's going to warrant unwarranted hate. So Terence Crawford wants this fight with Errol Spence. You have to, like Deontay Wilder says, speak it, believe it, receive it. Which I say is a little bit backwards. It should be believe it, speak it, and receive it. You first have to manifest it in your brain. You speak it into existence, and then it actually comes into existence, right? So when Terence Crawford says things like that, it's completely wrong. And as far as Terence Crawford needing this fight, he does need this fight. Now, Terence Crawford obviously is already set as a Hall of Famer. He's a 3-division champion. He's undisputed at welterweight, right? I mean, at junior welterweight. He's a welterweight champion. He's a 3-division champion. He's undefeated. He stopped or knocked out his last 10 of his last 11 opponents. No doubt. So he's going into the Hall of Fame. But there's a lot of fighters that are in the Hall of Fame. No slight to those fighters. But you have Arturo Gatti in the Hall of Fame. Arturo Gatti doesn't have any big signature wins. He has signature fights, historic fights, action-packed fights. But his big signature wins, nobody points. You can't point to them, right? Terence Crawford, with his competitive nature, right? Terence Crawford can't even play a spade game or dominoes or pool or whether it's just racing up and down the street, or whether it's when he was with Sean Porter, 2-time welterweight world champion, superstar, retired future Hall of Famer, and his team. And Carlson says that Terence Crawford was so competitive about who could throw a football the furthest. When you have that kind of competitive nature within you, the makeup in you, and you retire, you're not going to be satisfied if you don't secure this fight with Errol Spence. You absolutely must secure the fight with Errol Spence. And ultimately, Terence Crawford is already on the side of blame, right? And you make matters worse when you say things like, you hope it happens, and if it don't happen, it's just one of those big fights that just never came to fruition. No, the fans want to hear you say that I'm going to do everything in my power to assure that this fight comes to fruition. I'm going to make this fight come to fruition. We're going to make it happen in 2023. Right? Hope means 50% chance it won't happen. Now, I know my partners at BOK Prime are going to do everything in their power to be able to be assistants to making Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight. I know that for a fact. David Avanesian is no walk in the park, but Terence Crawford is the superior fighter, and I believe Terence Crawford is going to win, right? No slight to David Avanesian and his team. But the fight that the fans want to see is Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, and you have to deliver, and you have to sound consistent. You have to sound confident that you're going to do everything in your power to make the fight happen. Not that he hasn't, right? Because I know how these last negotiations unfolded. So I know that he has. But you have to assure the fans and let the fans know with pure confidence that I'm going to do everything in my power to make Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight happen. I understand it takes two to tango. So he's saying if they're not participating and they're not cooperating, then it's impossible to make it happen, which I understand. But if you say those types of things, the fans are not going to side with you, period. They're never going to see your side. So it was completely, the words that he used comes across as irresponsible to the fans. Because the fans clamor to see Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. And the sport of boxing has to deliver Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. Terence Crawford needs to deliver Terence Crawford, Errol Spence. And like I said, for legacy, for history, you never want, he's not going to be somebody that wants to be revered as didn't make the fight happen. He's going to be on the side of blame all the time. Okay? When you look at Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe gets all the criticism for not making a Lennox Lewis fight happen. People don't know about the negotiations with Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis. They don't know about it and how it turned out. And they had a deal signed, and then things fell apart, and Riddick Bowe agreed to everything, and then it fell apart. All Riddick Bowe is remembered for, majority, is fan man situation, the Andrew Galata low blows, and not fighting Lennox Lewis throwing his belt in the garbage. That's not what Terence Crawford wants to be remembered for. He wants to be remembered for making the biggest fight, fighting the biggest fight, and winning the biggest fight, which would be his fight with Errol Spence. That's the fight that obviously he can't focus on right now because he have a fight coming up in a few weeks against David Avanesian. But he absolutely has to focus on, has to assure and the fans that that's what he wants to do, because then it comes across as if you don't really want to make it happen. You could take it or leave it. And that's a bad attitude to have when it comes to the sport of boxing and the fans, period. Especially when Errol Spence is steadfast saying, I want to make this fight happen. This dude is not trying to make it happen. You have to assure the fans and assure yourself, ultimately, that you need this legacy fight. You are a Hall of Famer for sure right now. But you will always be remembered for not fighting Errol Spence. He will always, if the fight don't happen, the first thing you think of Terence Crawford is going to be, he never fought Errol Spence. And that's what you don't want to have happen, period. So, December 10th, David Avanesian, Terence Bud Crawford. Go to BOKPrime.com. Click on the link. Subscribe to BOKPrime.com. Errol Spence fight should be announced soon against, with more than likely, Keith Thurman. And we get Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman. I expect Errol Spence to beat Keith Thurman and Terence Crawford to beat David Avanesian. And then we get Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. So that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for you. Peace.